All right, greetings. So this is Freedom Phil, and this is going to be another episode of My Weird Life. And I want to talk about kind of an experience I had back in the day, and this kind of forwards in time to the kind of time I was helping that lady take care of that ranch. Not really ranch, kind of a family hobby farm. She had a bad back, and she needed someone there, so I had free rent. Only problem with that place is it was way up the hill, way up the hill, and this whole side story on that. But I went out to Freshwater Bay, and I got thinking about this. How I was talking about the 5,000 block the other day. How there's just actually those trails that are kind of back way up from one area to the other. You can basically kind of just zigzag all over the place, and whether it's logging roads or it's little trails that have been built. I got thinking about just how magical some of the woods are, like where the old logging roads were. Like I'm talking really old, like probably the original cuts that went through there way back in the day. Like you see these stumps that are just covered in moss. And like I was out there mostly at that point. I was going to go pick some mussels. So I told the lady, I was like, okay, I'm going to be gone for a day or two or however long. Um, just tell the girls to feed the horses and all that. And, because basically I was the heavy labor, move the bales, do this, do that, keep the fences up and, whatever was necessary. That was my gig. And so every once in a while I would take off, little me time. And I decided I wanted to go pick mussels. Well, it was that part of spring, like that mid to early spring, maybe let's just say mid spring, when it's not quite warm. It can be rainy and annoying, but it's not quite cold either. So if the sun hits just a little bit, your van will heat up. Midnight blue van. It's nice. The nice thing about where I was at, and this is, I'd come back up there at some point, and there was looking at I was going to go up to Striped Peak, and they now built this logging gate. So the main areas that I'll explain in some other video that I used to party on, they were all blocked off, and it could be for a myriad of reasons. People dumping trash, DNR not wanting people up there. They regularly busted, illegal brush picking, like some illegals up there too. And then the illegals up there had a pretty good operation of how they would do it, and I'll cover that in another video. But yeah, I was up there, and I was kind of one morning I was gathering wood for doing pickling, like water bath canning kelp, seaweed, bull kelp. And so I get my big green army bags, and I go out there. They're great because when they're full, but when they're not, they're just flat and tiny. So, I fill up 3 of those things full of slag wood, like the leftover stuff where they were stripping stuff off and there's big bark chunks and sticks and stuff. And this is perfect for water bath canning. It really is. And so I'm there doing that, and I kind of look around. It's kind of the morning, kind of a little bit of misty action still going on. It's kind of magical. And I go walking, following this old road, as I tend to do. I see a cut back, and I'm like, well, where does this go? Let's just keep going. I generally don't like to leave my vehicle just because there are fucking some weirdos out around. And it's really unlikely to happen, but it's better to be safe than sorry in some respects. But I'm walking down this road, and I get to the point where it's becoming less of a road, but I can still see the cutback. And I get to where the clear cut ends and the old forest begins. When I say old, it's not old growth. The road that I'm on clearly originally was where they cut the old growth out. And they used to cut right to the ditches and everything back then, way back then. But you're in there and you're looking at these fairly decent sized second growth trees. And then you see these huge stumps covered in moss, and moss just covering up the road. And you're walking on, it's like a bed of moss. And you're thinking to yourself, when's the last time anybody drove on this? I mean, people have probably walked it back when they were clear cutting, maybe a little here and there, but you walk down it a ways and you see some old garbage from like way back in the day, like back in the 60s or something, or back when that was probably still the road before, someone closed it off, blocked it off, too many problems, whatever. And you're looking at it just thinking, I'm like, I'm here. This is really magical. Like there's a little creek, like not a big one, just a tiny one, like a ditch-sized creek, but it's natural and it's just kind of meandering along at the bottom. You're like, I don't know, about from me to the tree over there is how far it was away. Some stumps here and there, and I'm looking at it just thinking, this is real. This is cool. It would be a total place that you could just have a chill session, bowl session, maybe a couple drinks, and just enjoy and absorb the nature. And I like that. I really like that. And wherever you go, and that's part of the reason it doesn't necessarily have to be like the national parks. Sometimes the places that, like I like watching the regrowth happen. I like a clear cut. I like when you go through a clear cut and there's like foxglove growing everywhere. Like there's a place over there. I don't know if it's probably way different now because years go by, the trees start growing. But when the clear cuts are first clear cuts for a few years there, the foxglove comes up, and there's a place out near Quilcene where it was just friggin' everywhere. And you're looking around like, wow, man, this is awesome. And so you get your clear cut, which seems like devastation, and it is. And sometimes then back in the day they used to burn the clear cuts. And you get more morel mushrooms. You get black morels from that because it causes void soil, which is awesome. But then the trees start growing. You get the grass, the berries, and the trees. Like if they're the natural berries, not like the Himalayans. They get big. They cause problems, but they're a lot of food, by the way. And with the natural wild blackberries out there, and this with the grasses and the foxglove and the other plants grow up through there, the fireweed. And it has its kind of season, and they've probably already planted the next generation of Douglas firs or whatever they're trying to grow, usually Douglas fir. And then out of nowhere, the Douglas firs just start taking over. And then they start growing a foot apiece. And so there's places where I've seen this transformation happen, hills that I used to go up to. I'd walked or biked or whatever. And I could see, I remember this one place. I was just back when I lived in the trailer park, briefly back in the little travel trailer. I rode my 10-speed out to where the logging road started, and I just started hiking. I hid my bike. And honestly, if I'd had a mountain bike, I could have just kept on riding up there. Probably could have kept on riding on that 10-speed too. But I hiked all the way up there, and you could see where the clear cut had happened. You could see the Elwha Valley, the Strait of Juan de Fuca, the Indian Valley Range. It was crazy just how much, and I grew up with that. So when it eventually gets to that point where it's like a whole forest, and you'd probably find, like, you go out there and maybe find some chanterelle mushrooms and some other things. I like it. I love it. And that's like, I don't, like I've said in previous videos, I don't really miss the mentality of the hometown, or there's a lot of people out there. There's a handful of people that I'd say are gems, there's some decent people, but like, the knuckle dragon, I could go without that. People are like, you think you're going to end up as a hermit? Yeah, probably. I'll probably be a hermit. But isn't everybody, unless you're like a total social butterfly, isn't everybody kind of a hermit these days? Like, they have their TV, they have their shows, and unless they have a reason to go out to places, they don't. So, yeah. I love the forest. I love watching nature do its thing and regrow. I love it. So this is Freedomville. Y'all have a good one. Take it easy.